All right, howdy folks, welcome back to Top Comics Pressing. This is going to be a dry cleaning video. I was asked to clean and press and possibly whiten or remove foxing from this actually pretty nice copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 62. Overall, it's very, very nice. It has a little bit of creasing right through here you can see on the Spider-Man. But other than that, it's pretty sharp. You know, for a Silver Age book, the spine is actually in really good condition. But what it is kind of gross looking. And you can kind of see that up in here. And especially on the back, if we flip it over, you can just see how dirty it is along the spine here. And so I just wanted to take this as some, videos here before I get started. And then we can go ahead and start dry cleaning this too. But you can just see how dirty it is. This, to me, this texture pattern almost looks like somebody rode a bike over it or something like that. I've seen that pattern a couple of times as I clean it off. It always surprises me. It does usually clean off, and you can just see all along here. This is pretty gunky. But I thought this would be a really good candidate here to show kind of the power of a good dry cleaning. I don't think that this thing actually needs any, quote, stain removal or whitening or wet cleaning techniques. I think it just needs a really, really good dry clean. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to use my eraser click pencil. I'm just going to start going in all the white spaces here. And actually on this book, I think I'm going to start with my Mr. Clean Magic Eraser Sheet and just give it a Ouija board first here and just see what I can take off. And again, the trick to doing this is to not using any pressure. If you use pressure, you're going to start pulling ink. But I have basically just the weight of my fingertips across that comic, and you can see it's pulling a good amount of dirt and grime off right there. And I'm just going to gently stroke it up and down, sideways. You can do circle motions if you like. Doesn't really matter. The important thing is just to be very careful around the edges to make sure you don't go across the edges, only go with the edges, and then very, very light pressure as you do this. The goal here is not to pull out all the dirt, it's just to remove that very coarse surface dirt and make the work with the eraser a little bit easier. And you can see, there's no color on there. You can just see where my fingers were kind of touching. Do the same thing on the back while we're at it. We'll use the nice white bright side here that's kind of been unadulterated, as it were. You can see, and we're getting a good amount there. So that's kind of what we're going for. And we can just flip it back on over and start. Just going to try to go. It's going to be kind of a long, tedious dry clean because it's a heck of a white cover. The good news is the front was in pretty good shape. And again, you don't have to be too cautious or careful around the color. Just make sure you're not putting a lot of force down. And make sure you don't rub the same area, a whole lot, because eventually you will pull color off with these eraser pens. It's pretty forgiving, but again, that's all dependent on how much pressure you put down and how many strokes you take, because eventually you will go through. You can see all the fouling on the eraser. Again, I just rub that on the piece of blue tape I've got kind of hanging out here on my side. And kind of go down, and a lot of this stuff is going to come up pretty easy, it looks like, which is really, really nice. It's quite fortunate. You'll notice again I have my hand splayed open. I'm going to apply pressure with my left hand as I'm rubbing here with my right hand. A little bit of a tear down here, so I'm going to be very careful around that spot. Maybe it's not a tear, maybe it's just goop that was on there. Maybe it'll look like a little bit of a tear. So all in all here. And I've said it before, corners are dangerous, so I use my Mr. Clean sheet there, kind of pulling from the corner out. these are the sorts of things that I think people overlook originally, but CGC catches. You know, there's a little bit of cracking here in the black, so it's very light creasing in that space. And CGC is going to call that as a defect. It's one of the curses of a black cover. All that really, really light creasing right there by the Medusa is all going to count against your grade. So much space between all this hair here under the Medusa. We're getting there, and this is looking pretty good. You can see it's still taking up stuff, you know, by the eraser tip there. It's just all that surface dirt from literally decades worth of grime buildup. Don't have to get too carried away. Look at it here in the glare, I can see a couple of eraser lines, so I'm going to go the sideways here and just try to even those out a little bit. Again, you get those typically because you're removing dirt from everywhere that the eraser touches, wherever there was some underneath. I get a little bit left. This is being a little bit unfortunate in that spot though. Use my cloth. All right, I'm going to go very gently over this Amazing Spider-Man webbing. Very small tear right here. There's another small tear right there. These might be manufacturing binding tears, but I don't think so. I think with the little bit of creasing there, that's going to be an actual defect. Very small tears though, right here and right there. All right, so we're going to call that good on the front. Flip it on over, and as you've heard me say many a times, it's along that back cover where you get the evidence of if it was cleaned or not. I'm just taking that eraser as close as I can get to the edge. You can see already how big of a difference that has. So we've cleaned probably in this section here, and you can compare it to the part up here and the part down here and just see how big of a difference that is in the overall appeal. And that's just all from the eraser, cleaning off that dirt. Again, keep the fingers splayed. Add stability to the book. And, you know, because the eraser is kind of flat, I'm trying to angle it so that I can see where that, you know, edge is to make sure I'm not going into the color more than maybe a millimeter or two. So I'm just trying to take it right up there. I kind of got my head on the side to make sure I've got a good eyeball, not where, you know, the white of the eraser shows, but where it's actually rubbing on the paper. Down by the corner, same trick here, just stroke towards the corner. And we'll do all four of them while we're at it. This corner damage up here, by the way, is from when it was originally cut. So you can see that there's a little bit of a tear right there, and it kind of goes through some of these pages. And you can see, if you flip it on over from the front, you'll be able to see how it kind of mimics it, especially the kind of chunks on the edge. So that looks to me like that was from the original slice that was made. Good. Just go back to our eraser there. You see how disgusting the eraser filings are there. I mean, it's a white gum eraser, and those eraser bits are black, so that's a good sign. That means we're cleaning up the comic. The closer you get to an open edge, I always like to move a little bit smaller and a little bit slower. You know, if you're a quarter of an inch off the edge and you got your hand there adding stability, you're probably okay being a little bit more vigorous, but definitely as you get closer to corners and edges, slow down. I've got my one finger right here just to hold that to make sure I don't move the paper or ding it in any way. I already did the corner closest to the actual edge. That should be good. Alright, now we can flip the comic here. And you'll notice this is a pokey process. Dry cleaning old comic books is not fast. And the paper from the cover is sticking out just a little bit longer than the inner wrap, and I don't want to damage it by rolling it over. So what I'm going to do here is just put a backer board under there, and that way the paper from that edge has something to push against as I kind of rub along it. Doesn't always happen, you don't always need that, but you can see right here the paper was kind of folded around the edge, and now I'm giving it something to kind of flatten out against. Again, putting my finger on the corner just to make sure I don't snag it. Again, using that backer board under there to help support the edge of the paper. Now as I get closer to the edge of the backer board there, I'm going to run into a problem, which is I don't want to be running this over the lip of the backer board. So I'm going to slide it. We can't get too close to the spine, but we can get a little bit closer. If you jam that backer board up against the spine, you're going to add a bunch of stress to the staples. We do not want to be doing that. So little bit here on this corner. go. So now you might be asking if we're done, and the answer is no. We have all of this space in the middle to do here. So I'm just going to take this gently over all the white spaces in this arbor. Again, I'm not going for 100% here because I don't want to pull off color. But what I want to do is just run this over the areas that should be mostly white very gently and see if I can pull off, you know, 60, 70, 80% of that dirt. Just to help it look a little bit sharper. Pull that off. It's doing a pretty good job too. I mean, that's a pretty fouled eraser for space. Lots of big Roman shields here. And then the sky is going to have a lot here. All right, now here's something that I kind of hesitate doing, but I think is going to be worthwhile in this book. So if we look very closely in this yellow area here, you can see that there's a lot of black, like especially right here between Roman and soldier. It's got a lot of crud right in there, and you can see that through all of this. So that means our little Ouija board magic eraser here didn't quite do enough. So I'm going to go back and do another round here. I just want to be very careful. So there's a very, very faint yellow hint to that, so that's about the max that we're going to be able to do there. Just getting... See, again, it's not... If I go like that, you can kind of just see it has the faintest yellow hint. And so that is getting close there to taking color with it. So, you know... Gonna be about the max we do there. Again, it's got just a faint yellow. So there aren't any big bald spots. We didn't rip anything off, but we did take a lot more of that black crud off of it with just an extra swipe there. If you do that a couple more times, you're gonna end up taking all the ink off. So you have to be very, very careful if you're gonna do that. Okay, now it's time to clean this on up, and then we'll take an look at it. So let me get all the filings off here. So many. Again, I'm supporting the comic in the middle just to make sure I'm not stressing the spines out. So I just pick it up kind of right in the middle, about an inch in from it, the open edge, 2 inches in from the open edge, somewhere in there. So many filings. Front cover, you know, only looks marginally better, but the back cover here I think looks a lot better. So if we compare that to the before pictures in this space, you know, certainly all those tread marks are removed down here. It looks a lot better. All that is much cleaned out. There might even be a little bit of stain here that we didn't really call out because it wasn't quite evident. We can check the interior. Yep, so that's an actual stain there that we missed. But everything else in here looks a lot better. So that was a solid comic book dry clean. Really nice. All right, hopefully you found that at least helpful or educational. Please leave a like, a thumbs up, subscribe, and follow. Take it easy, everybody.